Hi, I'm Brickroad, and there is a lot of discussion on YouTube right now about this FTC and COPA decision that's being made and new YouTube policies, and a lot of people have asked me what this means for my channel, and I've watched a lot of opinions about people who have all different kinds of channels on YouTube. If you haven't heard anything about this, essentially what has happened is YouTube has been collecting data on children under the age of 13 when you're not allowed to do that without their parents' permission. It's an FTC rule that I think has been in place since the 1990s or so. I'm not a legal expert. I have a very, very slim layman's understanding of the law and most things, actually. I can tie my shoes usually on the first or second try. Beyond that, I don't trust my intellect or expertise on any subject. But basically what has happened is YouTube collects this data in order to show advertisements. The idea being that if a kid has a YouTube channel, they can collect data on about what kind of videos that kid watches and then those to show them commercials for cereal or toys, or I imagine anything that we would see advertised on Nickelodeon or the Disney Channel. The difference being that YouTube's algorithms use targeted ads to show people ads based on what they like. And that's kind of how YouTube works, and it's how a lot of YouTubers make their money. And there's a lot to go over that I don't really think is relevant to my situation, but hopefully by the time I reach the end of this road, I will have shared all my thoughts on it, and everybody will know where I stand and what I'm doing about it. The way that YouTube has decided to handle this, because the FTC came down and said, hey, you've been collecting all this data and you're not supposed to, so we're going to fine you like $170 million. And YouTube said, okay. And then YouTube changed some rules on their site, so they don't want to be collecting this data anymore. They don't want to show targeted ads to kids anymore because that's illegal, and now YouTube understands that, and they are a very bad boy. So what they're doing is anybody with a YouTube channel, myself included, so small channels, big channels, we all got an email, and the email basically said we have to go on, and we've got three options. We can either say, yes, my content is always made for kids, in which case they're going to turn off targeted ads for those channels, which effectively demonetizes certain YouTube channels. Option B is you can say, no, my content is never for kids. And that's kind of the YouTube status quo as far as I'm concerned. Most channels, even channels like mine that make like all ages appropriate content. The third option is you can say, I don't want to make a decision for my whole channel. Ask me on a video by video basis. Like sometimes my videos are made for kids and sometimes they're not made for kids, but I want to decide on a video by video basis. And so the drama comes into play with a lot of channels like mine. Like I make video game content where I play video games and I talk over them, and is my content for kids or not? And this is actually something that's come up quite a lot in my YouTube career. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been on this platform since 2008, and I've survived a lot of different YouTube apocalypses. When I first started making this kind of content, nobody knew whether or not it was legal. The question was, can we even put gameplay content on YouTube and monetize it, or are we going to get into trouble? And that was an unsettled question for a long time. There was an instance in 2011 where my YouTube channel was deleted. They took it down, stating that I violated something in their terms of service. They didn't ever tell me what that was, and after I appealed it, and after a week or two, they reinstated my channel with no further explanation. After that, there was other various adpocalypses. The most recent ones where they say, hey, we're going to stop monetizing videos that aren't family friendly. So you see a lot of comments now, like YouTube said we can't have content that's not family friendly, but now you're saying we also can't monetize content that is family friendly. Like, what does YouTube want? So from that standpoint, this is just kind of a new thing that YouTube's going through, and this too shall pass. You know what I mean? Like, people are going to get through this. It's a tempest in a teapot. It's not the end of YouTube. It's not the end of anybody's channels. A couple of people might get caught in the crossfire, but the shakeout is going to kind of end up as business as usual. The question to people's minds, though, is if that's the case this time or not, because this was a serious violation of FTC regulations and U.S. law, and the settlement involved a very large amount of money. And there are a lot of channels, mine included, that people think exist in a gray area. Brickard makes gameplay content. He plays video games and talks over them, and doesn't use foul language and doesn't use off-color humor. He doesn't make racist or sexist or politically charged statements. For all intents and purposes, my content is completely safe for kids to watch. So that was the question that I was faced. I've had conversations with people on Discord, a couple people with channels smaller than mine, some people who don't have channels at all, or they're just viewing it from the sidelines. But the idea is, like, well, how do you answer this question? So the decision I've made is to tick the box that says I never make content for kids. I've decided that there's always going to be a vague definition. There's always got to be gray lines whenever you draw these kinds of lines. YouTube wants these things to be vague kind of on purpose, because they don't want to draw a hard and fast line and invite a lot of he said, she said, I'm on this side of the line, I'm on that side of the line, this guy got away with it, how come this? If you keep the rules vague, then nobody really knows what the rules are, and that's kind of smart from the standpoint of YouTube as a platform, much to the chagrin and frustration of all of us who use YouTube on a daily basis, both creators and viewers and everybody else who's involved in YouTube. But for YouTube itself, it actually makes sense to keep it vague. Anytime you're dealing with a vague regulation, anytime you're dealing with a line that's fuzzy, my philosophy is stay away from the line as much as possible. So my thought is, I'm not creating Dora the Explorer, I'm not creating Barney the Purple Dinosaur, or the Bubble Guppies, or... My idea is, if you're not specifically creating content of that nature for actual 3 and 4-year-olds, you're not making content for kids. All ages content, kind of by definition, is not content for kids. I'm going to watch the new Frozen movie. My wife and I are going to go see it. We're both going to enjoy it. We're adults. We're not taking children. That movie is an all-ages movie. It wasn't made specifically for kids. I think it's pretty clear that's where my content lies, and a lot of the gaming content that I watch on YouTube is in that same boat. The question now is whether or not that's going to be good enough for a lot of channels. There are a lot of channels. I watch Lego channels and Marble Run channels and Rubik's Cube channels on YouTube. People, grown people talking about toys. Some of them talking in like a very technical kind of manner that would only kind of apply to adults. But some of them are just, hey, look at the cool new cube that I'm unboxing and here's how it turns. Something that little kids would enjoy. And people are worried because apparently YouTube is also applying algorithms that are going to go around and flag particular videos as being for kids or not for kids. And I know that YouTube has done this with my videos. You can see it in my comments. People are like, hey, I watched the new Brickard video, and then YouTube recommended all of this kids content. Like, now I get to go watch Pregnant Elsa beats up Spider-Man. Isn't that fun? So YouTube already has these algorithms in place, and people are afraid they're going to use these algorithms to say, hey, you said your channel's not for kids, but you're clearly uploading content that is for kids, and we're going to demonetize you, or we're going to stop sending the targeted ads, or whatever the case may be. So I think some people could get caught in this crossfire before it all shakes out. I do think it's going to end up kind of business as usual, and it will have been a lot of ado about nothing. A few channels, especially if you're a purely like toy unboxing kind of channel that really relies on ad revenue from those kids, you might end up getting hurt, or you might not. Maybe the non-targeted ads will be just as effective and you'll be fine. But I think just like any change YouTube makes in this regard, there's going to be some people caught in the crossfire. I'm personally not particularly worried about it. I don't make most of my income from YouTube anyway. My income comes predominantly from people who support me on Patreon, and also nickel and dime side work kind of stuff that I do here and there. I'm not a rich man, and I don't make an enormous amount of money doing this work, and YouTube is just a small part of the the money that I make. So if YouTube demonetizes a whole bunch of my videos, I'm not super worried about it. Also, I've run out of road, but there is more road up here somewhere. I do think I've got more road. Maybe I don't. Maybe that was the end of the road. Oh, you jumped in front of my truck. See, that's not for kids. Kids can't be watching that. But, okay, this is kind of my official statement. My content is not made for children and is never intended to be. I think it's mostly okay for children to watch my content. And by children, I mean people 13 and under. I think it's mostly okay for them to watch my content. It's pretty safe, but that's not my decision to make. That's your parents' decision to make if you are a child 13 years old or under. I'm not really comfortable making that determination. All I know is that sometimes I put wiener jokes in my thumbnails, and sometimes I say bad words, and sometimes I tell darkly humorous stories that maybe some people wouldn't think are okay for kids. And most of my audience are people my age-ish, like in my generation. I don't have much appeal amongst kids anyway. So my all ages content, I've decided to click the box that says I never make content for kids. I don't foresee any problems with the channel, even if they start demonetizing my stuff. And I guess that brings us to the end of this video, because I've definitely run out of road now. Oh no, there's more road up here. Yeah, there's more. If I can make it up here without my battery running out. Excellent. Obviously, I don't want anybody to lose any state over this. I don't want anybody to lose a source of income. I don't want to see channels closed down. I hate to watch channels that I like and that I respect who are really feeling this, who are really worried about this. But I also think that YouTube is putting undue blame and burden on channel creators when really the data that they collected, we as creators don't have a lot of access to that data. Like, we only get to see what YouTube decides to show us. And if YouTube had like given me an option, hey, we're going to collect data from your viewers to give targeted ads, is that okay? Yeah, sure, I'll click that box. What about if some of our viewers are kids, 13 and under? Probably wouldn't have checked that box. But I wasn't given the option. I actually didn't even know that YouTube used targeted data with children in the first place. I assumed that's something they didn't do, and it was just kind of like a catch-all for kids kind of advertisement package that went through this. But that's about where I stand. I'm not personally worried, but my heart does go out to anybody who does get affected by the change. And enough people have asked me about this that I felt like I should make a video on it, explaining my rationale. And we have now arrived. Guys, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. Oh, looks like I already had a truck down here. And now we've crashed them. And isn't that wonderful?